So I get to McDonald's at around 7 in the morning, and it's McDonald's because, of course, at that time of day, I don't really care what goes into my body, just as long as it's a little more solid than what came out. But McDonald's isn't open yet. Lucky for me, the tavern across the street is, and thank God for that, because McDonald's still can't make a breakfast beer that doesn't taste like this hand looks. It always seems to need either a lot less grape jelly or a lot more ham. So we got this out of the way then? Okay, I'm walking into the tavern and I notice that the breakfast bartender, she's giving me the stink eye. Maybe because I gave her the flu that last month. In my defense, I thought it was just an STD, or maybe just a stroke. Anyway, I seem to be about as welcome as a game of dodgeball in a nursing home. So I say good morning, and she greets me with this Nazi salute. It's something you have to live with when you got hair like mine that parts on the right, but if people are going to mess with me for having a Hitler part, I suppose it's probably the right part of Hitler to have. But I mean, when your breakfast bartender greets you with a Nazi salute, you know it's going to be one of those days when you're glad you don't have to go before a judge. But it was still early. I was going to say something to her about that greeting, but if things got ugly, I'm smart enough not to fight a woman, but if she threw a punch at me, well, an 80-year-old could take me down, and I'm not letting that happen twice in the same week. But it got to me, you know. I walked in just wanting a breakfast beer that doesn't taste like dog food and Slim Fast. But after that Aryan high five, I kind of felt like something a bit stronger. And that's when it hit me. She had just sold me up from a beer to a bar shot by giving me a Nazi salute. Crummy way to start the day, but still. One salesman to another, respect. So I go over to Ilsa the She-Wolf at the bar, and I tell her to make me a Black Russian. I was feeling kind of Russian at the time, you know. Cold, broke, and sick and tired of Putin all day. By the way, I deliberately chose to make the bartender in this joke a woman because it's 2019, and I know from experience that women can be just as big of an asshole as a man. Hashtag anus envy. So I said, make me a Black Russian. Seems like a good drink for a bad day. And she wouldn't do it. So I said, make me a White Russian. She said, no, I'm not going to do that either. So now I'm thinking, is there something I'm missing? Is it maybe just juice and coffee cocktails at breakfast? But I really don't want orange juice, so I try one last time. So I say, make me a Bloody Caesar. I figured there might be protein in the clam juice. She said, no, I bloody won't. And now I'm wondering what I've missed here. So I asked her, can you make me any kind of drink? But just at that moment, while I'm standing at the bar, I noticed this little poster behind the bar that has recipes on it for the Donald Trump cocktail. The first one is Budweiser and Sprite. Budweiser because, of course, his buds are always wiser than he is. And the Sprite because it's just an R away from being a really familiar feeling. So you pour the Bud into a glass that's too small, and then you pour the whole can of Sprite into the full glass so that most of it spills onto the table. And if you complain about the waste, you're just a loser. We're America, bitch. So I'm still waiting for an answer from the bartender on my Bloody Caesar. And then I had a thought about the subtle humor in that Donald Trump cocktail that wasn't really on the poster. First thing, you're paying for 2 drinks, and you're not even getting one. Second, you know it tastes like shit, but if you're thirsty and your only option is 4 years of Hillary, you're going to drink it. Now that says Trump. Yeah, I'm woke to the deplorables. That's why when I decided to do a Donald Trump cocktail joke, I picked the good Donald Trump cocktail, not the offensive ones. I mean, it's not fair and balanced to say that the Donald Trump cocktail is vodka and dog shit. That is offensive. The Donald doesn't even drink. And there's always a lot of shit going on around him, but you will never, ever see Donald Trump photographed with a dog. At least, not one that likes him. And it's practically un-American to say that the Donald Trump is a Pepsi and Metamucil served in a Holy Grail. First, Trump drinks Coke like a real American. You can dissolve a nail in a glass of Coke. And at his age, he can use the extra iron. And the Donald does not need Metamucil because his colon is one of the wonders of the modern age. Have you seen the guy's diet? I dare you to find a speck of fiber in there. Big Macs and KFC go through him like Campbell's soup. Why do you think he's up tweeting at 5 a.m.? And the Democrats say he's full of shit? Really? Shit comes out of him like a freight train, and we are all witnesses. Wait, that doesn't sound right. Anyway, I'm still waiting for an answer from the bartender, and finally she turns and she looks at me, and she has that 50-yard stare, you know, like one of those old guys who hadn't actually been to Vietnam, but she's seen a lot of documentaries about it. And then she says to me, you come in here, you tell me to make you a black Russian. Then you tell me to make you a white Russian. Then you want to know if I can make you a bloody Caesar. Either order a drink or get out of my bar. And then it hit me. She thought that I wanted her to make me into a different person. And now I'm really pissed off because my next choice was going to be a Harvey Wallbanger. And then she looks at me and says, brother, you look like hell. And she pours some whiskey in a glass and says, here's a double. You look like you need it. And I realized in that moment that there's a lot more to being a bartender than I thought. She sold me up from a beer to a double at 7 in the morning. Yeah, but my sister always could push my buttons like that. Yeah, I seem to end up in situations like that a lot. I think I'm saying the right thing, but people take it the wrong way. You know, I actually knew Rodney Dangerfield for a while in the 80s, and, you know, we could have had our own support group, but we both knew that was never going to last. My dad would end up meeting his wife, and you just know that's when we'd lose the basement for meetings. It's always where Dad wants to set up his bondage gear. So we never really connected. It's not like we were competing with each other, but one of us was always going to end up with the first draft pick. When we were together, it was like two guys in the same hospital waiting room. I'd be there with all 4 of my limbs broken. He'd be like the other guy who's only got a broken finger, but his 4 kids are running wild and annoying the crap out of everybody. And his wife keeps giving him grief about how stupid he was for breaking his finger. And we both know we're looking at each other at that moment and thinking, Jesus, I sure hope I don't have to follow that. So I've been trying to find people who have to like me. But cults can be pickier than you'd think. Evangelicals, they gave me a couple of shots. I had to quit them. I got tired of waiting for the bullet wounds to heal. Speaking of guns, ISIS wouldn't have me. They said they needed their fighters focused on what they were going to, not running from. Mormons at least tried to be nice to me. They just said the underwear probably wasn't going to fit me anyway. And even Scientology rejected me. Too clingy, they said. Yeah, I wouldn't mind a bit of clingy from my girlfriend, but dealing with her, that's like eating soup with a pair of tweezers. I can't figure out why she's the one on the diet, but I'm the one who has to eat with the tweezers. And dumb. She thinks that a salad fork is having sex in a bowl of vegetables. And pushy? She won't stop nagging me to buy her a bowl big enough for a threesome. And unfaithful. Oh, you don't know. Well, actually, I guess you do. Anyway, I try to live with all that, but I told her, I said, if you want an open relationship, it just can't be all about you. It's got to be tit for tat. And she said, I don't know who this tat is, but you'd better leave my tits out of this. And the relationship was tough enough before the cops got involved. I mean, why can't she make their breakfast once in a while? At least I got my therapist. She tries to help me, but we never seem to get very far. Apparently, if I want to have better girlfriends, I'm the one who has to imagine them. And with that kind of advice, I don't know why I still pretend to pay her. It's just women. You know, if the women we attract are a mirror to who we are as a person, it's just kind of hard to accept that I only exist as a theory. I try to treat women right, though. I always wore a condom. I'd be wearing one right now, but they don't make them that small anymore. And I always got signed and written consent, like I insisted on it. Oh yeah, are you kidding me? You wouldn't believe what some of these women wanted me to do. I don't even know what I see in women, period. I mean, sometimes I actually wish I was gay. I even tried dating guys once. It was February and I didn't ski, so there wasn't much else to do. And dating guys was interesting. I wasn't crazy about gyms or home decor, and if I'm honest with myself, I really couldn't afford the clothes, but at least the sex was better. So I finally had a boyfriend for a while. I knew we had a lot in common when he said he couldn't get laid in a bathhouse. I thought he was joking. Found out that he was the one that the guys at the bathhouse used to say, hey, you got a sister? But he was transitioning that year, so just to be on the safe side, I decided it was probably time that I got a vasectomy. That way we'd both sleep better. The vasectomy, that was another nightmare. My doctor, he thinks I'm nuts, but get this, he was high when he did the surgery. First of all, it's just a quick snip under local anesthetic, right? But he put me under anyway when I complained about having to put a sheet on my face. And he said it was just in time, too, because this vasectomy was going to be a messy job. He said he looked at a sample under a microscope, and my sperm were already planning a breakout. He said it was going to be tough enough to deal with, but apparently they've also got a hold of weapons. So he put me under, and he told me afterward that it didn't go all that bad. He negotiated a partial release of prisoners, and in exchange I have to promise that they never have to work for me again. But I didn't find out until after I got the bandages off that suddenly I had a third testicle. And I admit, I was thrilled until I realized disappointment doesn't feel any better when it comes in threes. At first I didn't even know it was a third testicle. I just thought it was a swelling with a really interesting shape. Or maybe a promotional thing like a fridge magnet or a temporary tattoo. Here's what really pissed me off, well, so to speak. I didn't even find out until my 3rd month checkup that ball 3 was actually just a small onion he grabbed from the cafeteria in the basement. He didn't even remember until I dropped my pants. And when he told me about the onion, I was furious. An onion? I said, an onion! You went to the cafeteria and got an onion! The guy had a whole dish of almonds in the shell on his bookshelf. Well, at least they looked like almonds. He said, just a minute, pal. You have to put yourself in my shoes. You come in here telling me that you need a vasectomy because you want to be safe since your boyfriend is transitioning. I'd like to see you listen to that after 2 bowls of good skunk and still keep a straight face. He said, at least I did you 2 good favors here, buddy. First off, at least now you've got something interesting going on down there. Second, you don't want to know what your sperm were going to do with the explosives. I said, but you gave me an onion. Are you saying that a shelled almond wouldn't at least have been a better match? He said, I don't have any almonds. Those are prosthetic dog testicles. What do you expect to find in a vet's office? And then I realized vasectomy does kind of look like veterinary when you see it from a distance. And honestly, I don't know a whole lot about almonds or dog balls, but I snuck a few of those in my pocket when I made the appointment. They sure tasted ripe to me. Anyway, things finally calmed down, and he got around to asking me about surgery. He said, okay, so how are things going down there? I said, okay, I guess. Things are making a little bit more sense now. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, the onion explains why I've been getting heartburn after sex, and why peeing makes me cry. But I still don't quite get why hamburger joints give me a hard-on. By the way, the dog testicles thing is real. Apparently it's needed to help with the dog's self-esteem after it gets neutered, which I would have thought was insane until I found out what it feels like to suddenly have an extra one. But by the time that healed, my boyfriend had dumped me for the local veterinary prosthetic salesman. Yeah, heard that if you're with the company, you can get up to 6 of those things for free. I guess you can get up to 8 of them in there if you really pack them tight. So I stopped going to the bathhouse and I'm back dating women again. Yeah, there was a lot of celebration when that news came around, I tell you. You think those gays party hard during Pride Week? At least now I can't have my own kids anymore. Man, I thank God I never had a pregnancy scare. I did used to make them up every now and then, well, just because at my age, it doesn't look good if you haven't scared the crap out of at least some woman. But it never worked. The one girl who fell for it left me 2 months later when I told her the truth. It wasn't the fake pregnancy scare that she hated. She just said the fact that I couldn't wait the full 9 months to tell her meant that she couldn't trust me to keep a secret. I tell you, she's the last double agent that I'm going to date. Bet my folks wish I had been a pregnancy scare. Neither one of them were very warm to the idea of having a kid, but they were getting way too much sleep, and Dad needed a better excuse to get out of the house. And a lot of couples were having kids back then. The baby boom, big fad in the 50s, I guess. And I think there was a lot of market manipulation going on, too. To hear my folks tell it, kids always looked so much cooler on TV than they did in your living room. But you don't find that out until you get them home, and Apparently the exchange policy was a real hassle. Now, as I understand it, back in the late 50s, if you got a new kid, it didn't come with a lot of the safety features you get today. If you didn't want a new one, you could always find a refurb, and at least you knew that it had had its shots and had been broken in a little bit. But my folks had to have a new one. So, oh yeah, before I say anything more, you need to know my mother's one scary woman, and Dad's dead, so the family rule is you don't speak ill of the living because they got all the money. So just in case my mother sees this, I'm going to be using my dad when I'm talking about both my parents. So the story in my family is that Dad almost died when she gave birth to me, but she swears it never happened. I think they just didn't want to have that kind of accident on their insurance record. But there was a lot of weird stuff around my birth. In addition to almost killing me on the way into the arena, I was also born 3 weeks late, and Dad was dying for a cigarette by then. If that wasn't enough, I was born on Christmas. Yeah, at least my folks tried to make up for it when I was a kid. And I paid them off for that Christmas by the time I was 10. The worst part of it was that I was delivered with a pile of defective parts. I mean, these are the only ones you can see. And no extended warranty. It was a lot worse than you're seeing here, too. The whole left side of my face, the whole right side of my body didn't look like my other side. My legs were all bent wrong, my neck was all bent over to one side, and that was just the stuff they could see that day. I looked like the kid you really hope doesn't find out about the party. But they didn't find out until a lot later that I was smart enough to figure out where the party was, and stupid enough to ask a cop for directions. Kind of made it easier that they were both able to smoke and drink once I was born. But my father was a star athlete, and he could seriously have won any Steve McQueen lookalike contest on the planet. My mother, she looked like Joan Crawford, and the young Joan Crawford, before the dominance fetish. And they got... So... My father's father, my grandfather, he was a doctor, and he offered to prescribe thalidomide for my dad's morning sickness. And this is going to explain a few things in just a minute. But before we get to the actual birth... Oh, actually, yeah. I was born at 4:45 on Christmas morning, and they took me away to be cleaned and polished before they presented me to my dad. Standard stuff, just good customer service. I mean, who wants to be presented with a dirty baby, especially when it's your first new one? And I guess baby polish was still a fairly new thing, and always want to try for repeat business. But I remember that I hated baby polish. They probably have way better stuff today, but the stuff I remember smelled like birthday cake and linoleum cleaner. But that just could be a bad memory. Dad's birthday cake always tasted like tuna casserole. Anyway, Dad said she never forgot the moment that she first saw me. She was just finishing her first postpartum cigarette. And the nurse came back with me and took me out of the courtesy wrapper and handed it to my father. And the morning sun was just starting to stream in through the hospital window, and the glare off my head was just blinding. And Dad says this never happened, but I know the way my father thinks, and I got to believe that at that moment, she put all of this together. Christmas baby, blinding light off my head, and, well, that's it. My father wasn't big on puzzles. And I'm sure she must have wondered for at least a split second coming? And that sounds crazy, I know, but my folks talked way too much about their love life when I got older. Especially how they wish they had one. So I could definitely see my dad wondering about this. Especially when you add in the cigarette smoke, it kind of made the whole picture look that much more mystical. It's kind of the modern version of frankincense when you think about it. And I wondered about this myself later in life. I used to lie in bed at night. I'd be putting this together in my head. Christmas baby, all these expectations on me, that nativity scene moment at the hospital where I was born, complete with frankincense. 2 preachers on my dad's side, 2 doctors on my other dad's side, and oh jeez, weren't those 2 family get-togethers warm and fuzzy. One side of the family thought they could prove they were the special ones because of this doctrine that dated back to the Romans, and the other side were a bunch of religious nuts. And that definitely messed me up, because all my friends wanted to be firemen and hockey players. First thing I wanted to be, the next Albert Schweitzer, the next famous missionary healer. So I was putting together a lot more pieces than my father ever noticed. And by the time I was 5 and I knew what the second coming meant, I seriously wondered if I was it. But if I was, my real dad in heaven was going to be so pissed off with me. I mean, I'd already done so much coveting and stealing, and Dad never did figure out where all his power tools went. But I needed the pawn shop money to bribe my teachers. They didn't mind me trying to convert the kindergartners, but I got in real trouble when I messed up the janitor's prostate surgery. So I got to go back to the moment my Dad first saw me. She squinted a bit because of the glare and took this gleaming fresh baby into her arms. And so fresh that my back was still stuck to the courtesy wrapper. And she took her first look at me, and she remembers the first thing she said. She said, "Wait, my daughter has a penis?" And then, God bless her, she summoned every fatherly instinct inside her and made lemonade out of this situation. And she said, "That's fine. I'm sure I can fix him." But she barely got the words out of her mouth when she started noticing all the other little issues. And that's when she remembered the bottle of thalidomide there on the bed table. It was just sitting there, all framed by the ashtray in the front, and the gin bottle in behind, and flanked by her pack of Rothmans and a half-full can of Whippets. So she put down her coffee mug and her glue bag. Nobody smoked pot back then, so Dad liked to huff paint thinner to relax. And then she could properly cradle this beautiful bundle of shattered expectations. And just as her first diet pill of the day was kicking in, she had a second thought about that thalidomide. Because she didn't take thalidomide. She never had morning sickness. So she looked at the bottle, she looked back at me, and just thought, there goes my alibi. So back when I was in my 30s and I thought I was ready for it, I asked my dad once, "What was it like when you first saw me for the first time?" And he told me the story. He said, that moment where you reach down to the floor to pick something up, and then you notice the dog looking guilty, and you realize that what you just picked up isn't what you thought you were picking up? And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "That was the exact moment that your mother came through the door with you for the first time. Your mother really liked to overdo it with the baby polish, but as soon as I adjusted to the glare, I looked at you, and then I looked at the dog, and then I looked back at you, and then I looked at the turd in my hand, and by that point I was pretty sure one of you had done this. So I looked up and I just said, 'Lord, please give me a sign. Which one do I keep?'" Now, remember that this all happened before the mandatory health care, so these defects, they weren't covered under warranty. And baby polish does not hide dented fenders and torn seat covers. So they had to get a couple of the major repairs done in the shop, and Dad took care of the rest in the garage on the weekends. But by the time they got to this hand, fixing this was going to require some expensive machining, and apparently a few factory parts and some tricky installations. So they decided, well, he seems to be getting from point A to point B okay, and we'll have that penis thing licked by the time he's ready for school, so I guess we're good. Yeah, that's my dad. And they still didn't know about the wiring issues yet. Just so you know, I'm done with the really personal stuff, so I can mention my mom again. The stuff I'm about to tell you, it's all bullshit that I just made up. Boy, I just hope I don't make any lucky guesses. So, yeah, Dad was something else. When I was a baby, Mom told my dad, "I think we got a rotten kid here." And he said, "Yeah, I know, but the doctor swore it was fresh when we got it." And when I was a little older, I used to love riding in the dryer on laundry day. Mom used to call me her little dryer ball because everything dried more evenly when I was in there. But my parents didn't believe in fabric softener, so after I got out, I had a static charge that attracted balloons from miles away. Came in handy when the neighbor's truck needed a jump start. But the neighborhood dogs wouldn't come near me. And when I was too old for the dryer, Dad used to let me ride in the trunk when he ran errands. Yeah, I was Dad's special little Secret Service agent. Nobody was getting near my dad's whiskey bottle. So there was a speaker in the deck right at the front of the trunk, and on road trips he'd blast all the talk radio and news stations, which is just so I could keep up for the rest of the world. Kind of nice, because the trunk didn't have enough light to read a newspaper. But he could be pretty weird too. On some of the longer trips, he'd only play the French language stations, and neither one of us ever learned French. And to this day, I don't understand a word of French, but I can speak it really loud. So by the time I was 5, I had the trunk set up just the way I like it. There was a little TV. I had track lighting in the lid, a little freezer for my popsicles, a tiny couch built into the wheel well. And Dad couldn't understand why his battery was always going dead until he found out about the little washing machine that I rigged up under the spare tire. He wasn't too happy about it, but he let me keep it when he saw the job I did on his shirts. And when I was 6, my father let me drive for the first time. Yeah, I just wish he hadn't gotten out of the car first. Yeah, my first time solo, I went about 100 feet in reverse until I was stopped by our neighbor's Buick. Smashed my little TV and broke the couch, but amazingly, all of Dad's shirts were fine. So I was recovering in hospital because I couldn't go to school, so my folks brought me all these educational toys, so I wasn't wasting my time. And I didn't really like the drywalling and spackling kit, but the tax return set was fun. I remember the nurses, they wouldn't let me practice my ironing after 9. And they took away my potato peeler when one of them caught me picking my nose with it. But I didn't care, because if any of the other kids gave me any hassle, I still had my hacksaw and screwdrivers. So yeah, my dad was not thrilled with me. Yeah, I couldn't skate, so Dad taught me to play goal. It was bad enough he didn't give me pads, but when I was 9, I found out that they don't even have a goalie in golf. Ooh, that's the bladder fairy granting me another wish. So I guess I better explain that too. When I was in my 30s, I was babysitting a nephew, and apparently I did such a great job that a fairy granted me a wish. And I was half drunk at the time, so I said, "Make me permanently pissed." But either the fairy had dyslexia or I didn't say it right, because since then I can't be too far from the bathroom anymore. So I've probably said more than enough. Ugh.